So guess what Judge Lyman did? All of a sudden, he changed his mind.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi, and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Tashti Floor, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. Before I forget, thank you so much to everyone who bought my 100% organic t-shirt yesterday. I actually forgot to thank the person who said that I should make a 100% organic t-shirt, and that's Stacy. So sorry about that, Stacy. So I just wanted to make sure that she also get the creds that she deserves, because I hate that when people don't credit others for the work or the ideas that they have. So thank you, Stacy. And thank you to everyone who bought it. It's still in my Etsy store, you guys. Let's start off with the good news, you guys, because that doesn't really happen that often these days. So there's been a lot of movements in the docket. As you know, there's new filings every day, especially now because the deadline towards motion to quash is coming up tomorrow. So Perez Hilton, as you know, is one of the people who's been subpoenaed. He didn't receive the Google subpoena, but he did receive the subpoena for every communication, whatever, a much broader one than the rest of us. And he's been really worried about his privacy and his personal information being doxxed. As you know, that seems to be the tendency from Blake Lively's team, that they just don't care to black out or to retract the personal information of people who file anything in that docket. I've seen every other content creator's email addresses, phone numbers, and addresses, and they don't really care. And for Perez Hilton, this was very important. He is a public figure. He worries for his 3 children and his mother, and he's been very consistent in asking the judge to remove his personal information so it doesn't become public. Anyway, so on July 28th, Judge Lyman denied Perez Hilton to have his personal information retracted because he said that's just going to happen anyway, and you have to trust the system because we follow the rules in this court. He said nothing is public. If it happens, you can ask for protective order, but it hasn't happened yet. So he just wanted them to already dox it before he could actually complain about it. I don't know the logic here. Anyways, Perez Hilton was not happy about that. And yesterday he had like a long rant, not very pretty rant, about the judge.
My opinion that I can't be incarcerated for to say this judge sucks. This judge is awful. This judge makes me want to vomit. This judge is a disgrace to the legal profession.
And then he followed up by sending a new letter to the judge explaining that they're not following these procedures in his court, that they are doxing people. And he actually showed some examples. He said, this person, her information is still available in the docket, and this other guy, his information is also available. And he mentioned again how some of Wayfair parties, Steve Sarowitz amongst them, who have experienced serious harassments and threats because his information was doxed. So guess what Judge Lyman did? All of a sudden, he changed his mind. This is the first time I've seen him doing anything like this. I think it's a great sign. I don't know if he saw Perez rant about him or if he just realized that Blake Lively's team is not being completely honest here, because that's also something that Perez Hilton pointed out in his filing, in his letter to the judge. On the other hand, I feel like he only did this because Perez Hilton already has a name. He is a public person. Would he do that if it came from some of the small creators who only have a few subscribers? Would he then roll over and do the same thing? I don't know. As you know, as I mentioned yesterday, some of the content creators and journalists have sent him letters saying that, they want to get reimbursed legal fees and they want sanctions on Blake Lively's lawyers for doing this to us because it has caused emotional harm and distress. And the judge denied that because he said the subpoenas were withdrawn. Anyways, Someone sent me a link to this article. It's about Megan Twohey. Remember Megan Twohey, the one who wrote the article in the New York Times about Justin Baldoni and we can bury anyone inside a Hollywood smear machine? That article. She was in Martha's Vineyard last week, talking about her work, her important work as a journalist. And let's put it this way, she is not backing down that she was the person who discovered the untraceable smear campaign. She was joined on stage by Miss Cantor, who I think is the other journalist who investigated Harvey Weinstein. Both women said here, at its core, investigative journalism is about scrutinizing power. So that's what Megan Twohey did in that New York Times article. She scrutinized power. Power in this situation was not the Hollywood power couple, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, who are multi-millionaires. The power was Justin Baldoni, who basically, let's face it, not many people even knew who he was before he was charged with these accusations from Blake Lively of SH and a retaliation smear campaign. He was the powerful here, according to Megan Twohey. Why? I guess because he's a man. And then they said they also learned another part of the job has been to protect truth in the aftermath of a story. Basically saying that they keep doubling down, although there is no evidence that what they found in that untraceable smear campaign has any truth to it. It's so funny how these things are just contradicting itself when she's saying that she's the one who actually found out about this alleged smear campaign. And at the same time, Blake Lively's team is saying that it is untraceable. How is it untraceable? If you found it and you actually reported on it to be true, then you're kind of admitting that there is no evidence, but you still wrote that article. As I said a million times, they did insinuate in that article that I was a part of the smear campaign, which caused me a lot of harm. But for Megan Twohey, the most important thing was to get the truth out there. She's saying that she learned a lot. She received an incredible education into today's media environment after her investigation into the controversy surrounding the movie It Ends With Us, starring Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. The movie was also directed by Mr. Baldoni, who faced allegation of SH by Ms. Lively. Based on thousands of text messages between the co-stars, Ms. Twohey and her colleagues at the New York Times revealed a smear campaign against Ms. Lively that manipulated press and online coverage, which is apparently not alleged anymore. It is a smear campaign, even though there's no evidence, as you know. So now she is portraying herself as a defender of truth, talking about protecting the integrity of stories in the face of backlash, when she herself participated in a story that blurred the line between journalism and PR cover-ups. And we're talking about the same person who issued subpoenas against 43 journalists and content creators. Apparently, she said on stage, it's very interesting to now be working in this new media environment where standards are different. This isn't about defending journalism. This is about defending the appearance of journalism. Now, Megan Twohey is really trapped in her own contradictions. On one hand, she's pushing the idea here that the campaign was untraceable and that it was shadowy and hidden and cleverly orchestrated behind the scenes. On the other hand, she's also claiming that she uncovered it and it was all laid out in front of her. I mean, how is that possible? Where is the evidence that any of the 43 people that Blake Lively subpoenaed had anything to do with his team or had anything to do with what you called a smear campaign? Where is it, Megan Twohey? Also, of course, she doesn't talk about the fact that she based this reporting on text messages that she retrieved from Jennifer Abel's phone that was subpoenaed by a sham lawsuit by Van Zandt, a shell company, who then dropped the lawsuit conveniently just before that article dropped. Megan Twohey doesn't say anything about that. And to be honest, those text messages, nowhere in those thousands of text messages was any of us mentioned. So if there were thousands of text messages about this smear campaign, why don't you have any evidence of who's been a part of it? Where is it? She willingly laundered all this information and cherry picked it to create a great narrative for Blake Lively. That's not called journalism. That is called PR with a byline. At the end here, she's saying that there's always been subject to legal actions, referring to Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against the New York Times. But I really think that there's going to be more and more defamation suits brought against these organizations like the New York Times. Yeah, so do I, because if you keep reporting the way you do, then I think people are going to sue you over it, because this entire story is just a disgrace for the New York Times. Okay, anyways, talking about abuse of power. So there is another story here that was published last year. I was really shocked when I read this because I completely missed this article. It was published in In Touch magazine, which is like not a magazine with a lot of credibility. And I was really kind of surprised that no one else picked it up. I haven't read anything about this anywhere else. And there is a source here, and he's saying all the things about Ryan Reynolds that we now know to be true. And this was published one day before the It Ends With Us premiere. Why did it end up in Touch? I think that probably this person has gone around to other publications and they refused to print it. Again, showing the power that Ryan Reynolds has in Hollywood. So the article says Ryan Reynolds morphing into a control freak like Tom Cruise. It's Ryan's way or the highway. And then the source is saying how he's kind of turning into a tyrant. He says now that Ryan owns a full-fledged multimedia marketing company that he's very proud of and that does good work, he can ask for a ton of power on his movie campaigns and can bring his own company's full strength to the table when it comes to actually getting the word out about a movie, the insider says. Then he talks about Maximum Effort that he founded. And as you know, that is also the company who did the terrible, terrible PR and marketing for It Ends With Us that received a ton of backlash for it. And of course, as you know, they blamed it on Justin Baldoni. So it says here, that's a double-edged sword, because he's often sidelining studio marketing executives who do this for a living and studio publicists with decades of experience. Ryan doesn't care, and once as he secures control over a campaign, as he has with Deadpool and Wolverine this summer, it's Ryan's way or the highway. The person continues to talk about how Ryan Reynolds is important for him to show the world that he has arrived and he's powerful, and you better do as he tells you to do. And he says what is interesting is that in his other summer releases this year, John Krasinski's movie If, that came out in May. Ryan didn't ask for these controls and let John and Paramount's marketing department run the campaign. The movie did fine, but nowhere near on the order of Deadpool and Wolverine, where Ryan has wielded almost total control from day one. I didn't even hear about that movie. It totally went by me. It's a kids movie, so maybe that's why. But it seems like here that he did that. He just like let someone else handle it, and it didn't succeed. And that was for Ryan Reynolds more evidence that it can only succeed if he is behind the wheel. So the source here, or the insider, says that I believe he did it that way to prove a point to all of Hollywood. And that point is that a movie is much better off under Ryan's total marketing control than not. And the person here says that the Canadian star is looking to steal a play from the book of the US most notorious control freaks to ever grace the industry. Tom Cruise is the only other star who takes this much control of selling a movie. You can see how Ryan is patterning his strategy after Tom's. It's interesting reading this because as I said before, what Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have been doing now, especially lately by trying to silence people, is exactly what the exact same tactics that Scientology uses. So maybe he's taking that from Tom Cruise's playbook as well. And he points out here that what you almost never see either of them do is get behind a movie they're not starring in. And that's too bad. At the end of the day, they always make it all about them. Well, he did actually get involved in It Ends With Us. So he did do that. But the interesting part here is that this guy is saying that he's basically pushing people out of their jobs, people who know what they're doing, who's been hired to do stuff. And then Ryan Reynolds just pushed them out of the way. And as we talked about so many times, that Ryan Reynolds is behind this entire coup of the movie It Ends With Us. And it makes so much sense when you're reading articles like this. I don't know who this insider is, obviously, but it does make a lot of sense to me. And the person who sent me this also pointed out the interview that Ryan Reynolds did with Time magazine when his company was one of the most influential in the world a while back. That article said that maximum effort also serves as Ryan Reynolds' life motto. And this is his life motto. I can't say I've invested every cell of my body into something that failed, he admits. The things that I failed at, I usually didn't fully believe in. That's so interesting he's saying that because we know that he fully invested in Blake Lively's brands, her hair care line, Blake Brown, and her Betty products. Obviously, maximum effort is behind all her marketing campaigns. And the brand of Blake Lively, he also really failed there because that is the most unpopular brand now in Hollywood. The journalist here is actually admitting how controlling and manipulative he is by saying that Reynolds can talk anyone into just about anything or just about. After the photo shoot to accompany this story, Reynolds repeatedly pitched Time editors on a cover featuring the back of his head instead of his face. Repeatedly pitched. So he told them that this is what you're going to do, obviously. And guess what happened? He got his will. The cover, I think they actually went with two different ones, but one was the back of his head. So yeah, if we ever had any doubts that Ryan Reynolds is a manipulating control freak and a narcissist, here is another proof. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and for sending me tips. Please keep sending them. Don't be afraid. I know some people are like, oh my God, what if she subpoenas me for my comment? That's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. You are safe. Of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.
Yeah, we flawsome talk.